"We're eliminating your position effective immediately," my manager announced in front of the whole team. "Budget cuts." The words landed like a slap across my face as 20 colleagues stared at me, a mix of shock and that distinct relief people feel when the axe falls on someone else. The conference room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Brock leaned back in his chair, a barely concealed smirk playing at the corner of his mouth. This wasn't a surprise to him. I felt a strange calm wash over me as I gathered my notepad. 2 years of being talked over. 2 years of watching Brock present my strategies as his own. 2 years of being labeled difficult when I challenged the numbers that never quite added up. I stood slowly, smoothed my skirt, and met his gaze directly. "Actually, perfect timing," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. "I wish you all the best." The confusion on Brock's face as I walked out was almost worth the public humiliation. Almost. In my car, I allowed myself exactly 3 minutes to cry. Not from sadness, from pure, incandescent rage. The kind that burns so hot, it feels cold. The memory that kept replaying wasn't today's dismissal. It was Brock leaning across his desk 6 months earlier. "The executive team doesn't think you have leadership qualities. Try being more agreeable." What he really meant: stop asking questions about the quarterly reports that somehow always matched projections to the penny, despite the chaos I witnessed daily. "You're making mountains out of molehills," he'd said, when I pointed out the inconsistencies. "Some people just aren't suited for big-picture thinking." The next day, my calendar invitations to strategy meetings disappeared. The message was crystal clear: stay in your lane or pay the price. What Brock didn't know, 3 months ago, the Industry Transformation Committee had reached out to me directly. They'd noticed my questions at conferences, my insights shared in professional forums. They'd been quietly tracking my work, not the sanitized versions Brock presented to executives. They'd offered me a leadership position with one condition from my side: complete authority to build my team. As I pulled out of the parking lot, my phone lit up with a message from Liv, the committee chair. "Heard what happened. Ready to start building your dream team now?" I typed back one word: absolutely. That weekend, I made 12 careful phone calls. Wait, before I continue, if you're enjoying this story so far, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories like this one. Your support means everything, and I read all your comments. Now, back to how I turned being fired into the best opportunity of my career. My name is Ren Harper, and until that Friday afternoon, I was the Associate Director of Strategic Analysis at one of the largest firms in our industry. I'm the person who spots patterns others miss, who thinks 3 steps ahead, and who, according to my last performance review, lacks sufficient team spirit to advance further. What that really meant was I wouldn't stop questioning why our projections always matched our results perfectly, despite massive variables in the market. I wouldn't accept "that's just how it is" as an answer. Growing up as the middle child in a family of 7 taught me to speak up or be forgotten. My father, a mathematics professor, taught me that numbers never lie. People do. My mother, a trial lawyer, showed me how to stand my ground when challenged. These weren't qualities Brock appreciated. On Saturday morning, I started with Imani from analytics. Brilliant with data visualization, passed over twice for promotions, despite creating tools that increased department efficiency by 40%. "I'm not calling about what happened yesterday," I said when she answered. "The whole building knows, Ren. It was brutal. That doesn't matter now. I'm calling because I'm building something new, and I need people who see things others miss. I need you." Silence. Then, "What exactly are you building?" I explained the committee's mission: to create a new framework that would transform how our entire industry operated. No more manipulation of numbers, no more smoke and mirrors. "This isn't about revenge," I told her, though part of me knew that wasn't entirely true. "This is about building something honest. What's the compensation?" Pragmatic Imani, always cutting to the chase. When I told her the figure, nearly double her current salary, she laughed. "When do I start?" I made 11 more calls like that. To Aaron, whose diversity initiative was shelved because it wasn't a priority. To Yuri, whose innovative approach was deemed too experimental, despite client interest. To Whitney, who questioned impossible growth targets and was sidelined for 3 consecutive quarters. I didn't mention my firing. I simply shared my vision and offered positions with proper recognition and compensation. Why would anyone follow you? Brock had once asked during a leadership assessment. He was about to find out. By Sunday evening, I had verbal commitments from all 12. The talent that had been suppressed, overlooked, and underutilized, now united with a common purpose. On Monday morning, Brock arrived to find 12 resignation letters waiting, 12 empty desks, 12 out-of-office replies directing urgent matters to his inbox. I imagined him sitting in his office, putting it together piece by piece. By Wednesday, he couldn't contain himself anymore. "What did you do?" he demanded when I answered his call. "I did exactly what you trained me to do," I replied calmly. I recognized valuable assets when I saw them. You can't just," he sputtered. "Goodbye, Brock. I wish you the best in your restructuring efforts." We rented a converted warehouse space, all exposed brick and natural light, the opposite of the windowless rooms where most of us had been tucked away. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. "Welcome to day one," I told my team as they gathered around the large central table. "We have 6 months to reimagine an entire industry." Imani raised her hand. "What if we fail?" It was the question everyone was thinking. We'd all left secure jobs, burned professional bridges. "Then we fail having tried something authentic," I answered. "But I don't think we will." The first month was chaos. Beautiful, productive chaos. Ideas flowed without the constant, "That's not how we do things" refrain. We challenged each other, built on concepts, tore down conventions. Meanwhile, our former employer scrambled. Clients began calling, asking why their best contacts had suddenly departed. Brock issued a company-wide memo about recent transitions and exciting restructuring opportunities. But there was a problem he couldn't memo his way out of: the quarterly numbers. Without Imani's analytical skills and Yuri's client management, without Whitney's strategic planning and Aaron's team coordination, without 12 key people performing daily miracles to make impossible targets seem achieved, the truth began to surface. For the first time in 5 years, the quarterly report showed numbers that reflected reality. And reality wasn't pretty. The business press noticed. "Unexpected shortfall raises questions about previous reporting accuracy." Read one headline. The stock dropped 11% in a single day. But I wasn't focused on what we'd left behind. I was too busy building what came next. Our team settled into a rhythm. Imani transformed complex data into visualizations that told compelling stories. Yuri developed relationships with forward-thinking potential clients. Whitney created realistic growth projections. Aaron ensured we maintained the inclusive culture we'd all craved. We weren't just colleagues. We became a kind of family, the kind that challenges each other to be better. We argued, we compromised, we celebrated small victories with impromptu dance parties and late-night strategy sessions fueled by too much coffee. 3 months in, we had a breakthrough. "The problem isn't just in the reporting," Imani said during our weekly alignment meeting. She pulled up a visualization that showed industry-wide patterns. "Look at these curves. Everyone's using the same broken model and hiding the failures. So we don't just need a better reporting system," I said slowly, seeing where she was heading. "We need an entirely new approach to how value is measured," Whitney finished. That night, we worked until dawn, mapping out a framework that would revolutionize how our industry evaluated success, one based on actual impact rather than manipulated metrics. We called it the Transparency Matrix. Words spread through industry channels. Former colleagues began reaching out, asking if we had positions available. I received LinkedIn requests from executives who'd never acknowledged me in hallways. And then came the email from Jordan, the CEO of my former company. "Your work sounds intriguing. Perhaps we should discuss potential synergies over lunch?" I showed it to the team during our morning huddle. "Are you going to meet with him?" Aaron asked. "What do you think?" I countered, looking around the circle. Whitney straightened her glasses. "He ignored you for years, then fired you in front of everyone. Now he wants to pick your brain. Classic Jordan move." Or, Yuri offered, "He's legitimately interested in what we're building." Either way, Imani added, his company's in trouble. Their last earnings call was a disaster. I nodded, considering, I'll meet him, not to partner, but to understand what he's really after. The following Tuesday, I sat across from Jordan at a small bistro downtown, 4 years as his employee, and this was our first one-on-one conversation. You've created quite the stir, he began, after ordering a $20 salad. 12 departures in one day. I've never seen anything like it. 13, I corrected. You fired me first. Remember? He had the decency to look uncomfortable. About that, Brock may have overstepped. We were restructuring. Yes, but your dismissal wasn't approved at my level. Interesting. I took a sip of water. So, Brock made that decision independently? Jordan shifted. Not exactly. There were concerns about your approach. My questions about the numbers? His eyes widened slightly. So he had known. I was never against analytical rigor, he backpedaled. But there are realities of business that sometimes require flexibility. Flexibility, I repeated. Is that what we're calling fraud now? Jordan lowered his voice. That's a serious accusation, Ren. It's not an accusation, it's an observation. I set down my fork. Now, what exactly did you want to discuss today? Your transparency matrix. I've heard promising things. Perhaps there's a way for our organizations to collaborate. And there it was, the real reason for this lunch. His company was in free fall. The artificially inflated numbers had finally caught up with them. He needed our innovation to save what he'd built. We're not interested in collaboration, I said evenly. Don't be hasty. We have resources, client relationships, infrastructure, and a culture that pushes people to manipulate data. No, thank you. Jordan leaned forward. Be reasonable. This industry isn't big enough for both of us to succeed. Something in his tone made me pause. Not just desperation. There was threat beneath the surface. Are you warning me about something, Jordan? He sat back, smile not reaching his eyes, just pointing out market realities. Startups face unexpected challenges all the time. The conversation left me unsettled. On my walk back to our office, I called Liv from the committee. Jordan just essentially threatened us. I told her, after explaining the lunch. Not surprising. Your former employer has board connections to half the major players. They're not above creating roadblocks. What kind of roadblocks? I've heard rumors they're approaching your potential clients, offering steep discounts to sign exclusive contracts. My stomach tightened. Can they do that? They can try. How's the Matrix coming along? We're making progress, but we need another month before the full demonstration. You might not have a month. There's an industry summit next week in Denver. All the major decision makers will be there. If you could present even a prototype. I stopped walking. Next week? That's impossible. If anyone can pull it off, it's your team. Liv paused. Jordan will be presenting too. His topic? Innovations in transparency. The knife twisted. He was planning to steal our concept before we could launch it. I called an emergency team meeting as soon as I returned. We need a working demo in 6 days, I announced, explaining the situation. Silence fell over the room. That's not possible, Whitney finally said. With our current approach? No, I agreed. But what if we narrow the scope, focus on one vertical, instead of the entire industry spectrum? Imani was already typing. Healthcare has the cleanest data sets. We could build a streamlined demo using those. Aaron crossed his arms. Even with that limitation, we'd need to work around the clock. I looked at each team member. I won't pretend this will be easy. If anyone thinks we shouldn't try, speak now. Yuri stood up. They tried to bury us. I say we show them we're seeds. A slow smile spread across Whitney's face. 6 impossible days. It is. We transformed our space into a round-the-clock operation. Couches became nap stations. The refrigerator stayed stocked with energy drinks and meal replacement bars. Spouses and partners brought home-cooked meals and fresh clothes. Day 3 nearly broke us. The algorithm kept producing inconsistent results. At 2 a.m., Imani slammed her laptop shut. This isn't working. The variables are too interdependent. I rubbed my eyes, fighting exhaustion. There has to be a solution. Maybe there isn't. Imani rarely raised her voice. Maybe Jordan was right. Maybe this is too ambitious. The room went silent. Jordan's name had become something of a curse in our office. Whitney, who'd been quietly working in the corner, suddenly looked up. What if we're approaching this backward? What do you mean? I asked. We're trying to account for all variables simultaneously. But what if we applied a cascading validation structure instead? Yuri sat forward. Processing each layer of data before moving to the next? Exactly. Whitney moved to the whiteboard. It would look something like this. As she sketched the new approach, energy returned to the room. By dawn, we had restructured the entire framework. For the next 3 days, we coded, tested, debugged, and refined. Sleep became a luxury, clarity a precious resource maintained through sheer will. The night before we flew to Denver, we ran the final test. The room held its breath as Imani executed the program. The screen filled with a three-dimensional visualization that showed healthcare outcomes mapped against intervention costs, administrative overhead, and patient satisfaction, all updating in real time as variables changed. "It's beautiful," Aaron whispered. It was more than beautiful. It was revolutionary. For the first time, the industry would have a tool that made hidden inefficiencies visible, that rewarded actual patient improvements rather than administrative maneuvering. As we stared at our creation, a notification popped up on my screen. An email from Brock. "Heard you're presenting at the summit tomorrow." Bold move for someone so new to leadership. "Jordan's presentation will make quite an impact. He's been working on it for months." Some advice from a former manager. "Know when you're outmatched." I read it aloud to the team. Aaron snorted. "Does he really think intimidation works on you?" I smiled, but something about the email bothered me. The phrasing suggested Brock knew details about our presentation, but how could he? Unless I looked around our tight-knit group, 12 brilliant minds I'd personally recruited, 12 people I trusted with my professional life. Had I made a mistake? I scanned the faces of my trusted team, wondering which one might have betrayed us. The thought made me sick. These weren't just colleagues. They'd become my chosen family. "Everything okay, Ren?" Whitney asked, noticing my expression. I forced a smile. "Just pre-presentation jitters. We should all get some rest before the flight." That night, sleep eluded me. I reviewed our journey, searching for signs I might have missed. Who had unexpected money troubles? Who maintained relationships with our former employer? Who had the most to gain by playing both sides? No obvious candidate emerged. I'd chosen each person precisely because they'd been undervalued and overlooked. They had every reason to want our new venture to succeed. Yet Brock knew something he shouldn't. The Denver Conference Center buzzed with industry professionals when we arrived the next morning. Our presentation was scheduled for 2 p.m., Jordan's for 11 a.m. "Let's attend his presentation," I told the team. "Know your enemy," and all that. We filed into the back row of the main hall just as Jordan took the stage. His opening slides featured sleek graphics and buzzwords, standard fare for these events. "The future of our industry," he began, "lies in greater transparency." I tensed. Had he really managed to steal our concept? But as his presentation continued, relief washed over me. His innovation was merely a dashboard that repackaged the same flawed metrics in a more visually appealing way. He hadn't grasped the fundamental problem at all. "He has no idea what we've created," Whitney whispered. After Jordan's presentation, we retreated to a small preparation room. The tension had lifted somewhat, but I still couldn't shake the feeling that someone had betrayed us. "I need to address something," I said, closing the door. Brock's email suggested he knows details about our presentation. Has anyone been in contact with our former employer? The question landed like a stone in still water. Expressions of shock, then hurt, moved across faces. "You think one of us is leaking information?" Yuri asked, disbelief evident in his voice. "I think someone might have," I clarified. "Perhaps unintentionally." Aaron stood up. "This is ridiculous. We've all sacrificed everything for this venture." "I understand how this sounds," I said, but Brock knew. "Maybe he's bluffing," Imani interrupted. "It's what he does, creates doubts, divides people." I wanted to believe that, but something still felt off. If anyone has anything to share, now's the time. Silence stretched uncomfortably until Whitney cleared her throat. "I had lunch with Jade last week," she admitted. Jade had been her closest friend at our former company, but I swear I didn't discuss specifics about the Matrix. All eyes turned to her. "What exactly did you discuss?" I asked. "Just that we were presenting at the summit, that we'd made a breakthrough. Nothing technical," Whitney insisted, adjusting her glasses nervously. I studied her, looking for signs of deception, finding none. "Anyone else?" After a moment, Yuri raised his hand. "My brother-in-law still works there. We had dinner Sunday. I might have mentioned we were finalizing a healthcare vertical prototype. Another piece clicked into place. Still, these seemed like minor leaks, not enough to compromise our work." "Is that it?" Imani shifted in her seat. She began, then stopped. My heart sank. Not Imani. She'd been the first person I'd called. Jordan reached out directly, she finally said. Offered triple my current salary to come back. Said they were implementing real changes. And, I prompted, my mouth suddenly dry. And I told him exactly where he could put his offer. She finished, eyes flashing. But I wanted you to know he approached me. Relief flooded through me, followed immediately by shame for doubting her. I'm sorry for questioning everyone, I said. It's just that Brock's email is exactly what it appears to be, Aaron interrupted. A cheap intimidation tactic from someone who knows he's about to be outshined. I nodded, letting go of my suspicion. You're right. Let's focus on our presentation. As we organized our materials, there was a knock at the door. A conference center staff member entered. Miss Harper, there's a technical issue with the presentation hall. Could you come check the setup? I followed her down a service corridor, away from the main conference areas. What sort of technical issue? I asked as we turned another corner. I'll let him explain, she answered, opening a door to a small meeting room. Jordan sat alone at a table. Thank you, Claire, he said to the staff member, who promptly left, closing the door behind her. What is this? I demanded. A private conversation, Jordan replied calmly. Please, sit. I remained standing. Our presentation is in an hour. That's why this couldn't wait. He pushed a folder across the table. Take a look. Against my better judgment, I opened it. Inside were printouts, code fragments from our transparency matrix prototype, complete with our internal comments. Ice formed in my stomach. How did you get this? Does it matter? The point is, your presentation uses proprietary algorithms developed while you were employed at my company. That's a lie, I said, but my mind was racing. How had he obtained these fragments? And why did they look so familiar, yet slightly wrong? Is it? Our legal team disagrees. He slid another document toward me. This is a cease and desist. Present your so-called innovation today, and we'll file suit by morning. I skimmed the legal document, my anger building. These algorithms weren't developed at your company. They're completely new. That's for the courts to decide. Meanwhile, a lengthy legal battle would surely drain your resources. Investors hate legal uncertainty. He was right about that. Even a baseless lawsuit could scare away potential clients and partners. What do you want, Jordan? He smiled. Partnership. Your team joins our company as a special innovation division. You get resources, we get your framework. Everyone wins. Except we'd be back under your control. No thanks. Consider the alternative. Years of litigation. Your brilliant team scattered to the winds. All because you were too proud to compromise. I stared at the code fragments again. Something nagged at me. They were so close to our current work, yet subtly different. Suddenly, I understood what I was seeing. These aren't from our current prototype, I said slowly. These are from projects we worked on at your company, projects you shelved. Jordan's expression didn't change, but a muscle twitched in his jaw. The concepts are similar enough to create legal ambiguity, he countered. No, they're not. Confidence returned to my voice. And you know it. That's why you're trying to intimidate me, rather than actually filing suit. I gathered the papers and handed them back to him. We're presenting today. File your lawsuit if you must. As I turned to leave, Jordan said, There's one other thing you should know. Brock wasn't acting alone when he fired you. I paused, hand on the doorknob, meaning, I gave the order. Your questions were getting too close to things that couldn't become public. The admission hit harder than I expected. Not because it surprised me, but because it confirmed what I'd suspected all along. My dismissal had never been about performance or budget cuts. Thank you for your honesty, I said. It makes what happens next much easier. I returned to our preparation room, mind racing. The team looked up expectantly. Change of plans, I announced. We're adjusting our presentation. Why? Asked Whitney. What happened? I explained my encounter with Jordan, watching their expressions shift from concern to determination. He's bluffing, Imani said confidently, after examining our original code against what I'd described seeing. Those fragments must be from our old developmental projects. Which means, Yuri added, he doesn't actually know what we've created. Exactly. But his threat gave me an idea. I moved to the whiteboard. What if instead of just demonstrating the healthcare vertical, We show how the matrix could be applied to identify financial manipulation. Aaron smiled slowly, using their own reported numbers. Would we have time to adjust the demo? Whitney asked. Imani was already typing. If everyone helps, yes. For the next 40 minutes, we worked frantically, modifying our presentation to include a segment on financial reporting transparency, using publicly available data from our former employer. At 2 p.m. sharp, I walked onto the stage. The hall was packed. Industry leaders, potential clients, and yes, Jordan and Brock sitting in the front row. Today, I began, we're going to show you something that changes everything. The presentation unfolded perfectly. First, the healthcare vertical demonstration showed how our framework created true transparency in patient outcomes. The audience leaned forward in their seats, immediately grasping the implications. Then came the moment of truth. But healthcare isn't the only industry suffering from opaque metrics, I continued. Let's look at financial reporting practices. Jordan shifted uncomfortably as our visualization displayed his company's public financial data from the past 5 years. Notice these patterns, I said, highlighting suspicious consistencies. When mapped through our transparency matrix, statistical anomalies become immediately visible. The visualization pulsed with red flags, impossible consistencies, suspicious timing of adjustments, patterns that defied statistical probability. I never actually accused them of fraud. I didn't need to. The data spoke for itself. As we concluded to thunderous applause, I looked directly at Jordan. Transparency isn't just a buzzword. It's the future. Those who embrace it will thrive. Those who don't. I let the implication hang in the air. The aftermath was swift. By evening, 3 major clients had approached us about implementing our framework. An investment group requested an exclusive meeting. Industry press swarmed our team for interviews. Jordan and Brock left without speaking to anyone. 2 weeks later, the board of our former company announced a leadership transition. Jordan stepped down as CEO. Brock was pursuing other opportunities. An internal audit was initiated. We didn't celebrate their downfall. We were too busy building something that mattered. 6 months after the Denver summit, our framework had been adopted by 30% of the industry. Our team had grown to 40 people, each chosen for their brilliance and integrity. The most satisfying moment came when Brock applied for a position with us. His resume emphasized his proven track record developing talent. I didn't reject him immediately. Instead, I invited him to interview with Whitney, Aaron, Imani, and Yuri, the very people he'd once dismissed and underestimated. They evaluated him fairly and found him lacking. We need someone who champions others' growth, not someone who takes credit for it, they explained in their rejection letter. I never said, I told you so. I didn't need to. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying what hurt you. It's building something better in its place. Something that changes not just your life, but an entire industry. If you've stuck with me through this story, thank you. I hope it reminds you that your voice matters, your ideas have value, and sometimes getting pushed out of one door is exactly what you need to find the right one. If this resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more stories of transformation. I read all your comments and love hearing how you've navigated your own professional challenges. Until next time, remember, your greatest power isn't in fitting in, it's in standing out,